Live this Monday morning from northern New Mexico, coming at you with everything I sold on eBay in the past 48 hours. So I got a good variety of things to share with you today. Got some clothes, got some hard goods, I got some shoes, and I got a couple Carhartt pieces that I'll also give you an idea how I like to sell. And ultimately, I love doing these videos because it gives me that opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the brands that I source most commonly in my area and how I like to list these items. So as per usual, I'll give you the lowdown on how I put words in the title as well as keywords in the description box just to help me get a faster sale. And I found by doing that, by taking that time, it just helps my eBay business to be more successful. So let's go ahead and kick things off. First item up is a set of Carhartt bib overalls. These are for a tiny tyke. I sourced these at a yard sale this past summer for $50. I stashed them in a bedroom closet until late summer, and then I listed them. And these bad boys here are also flannel lined, so I made sure and put that in the title. And any type of feature that any garment has, any upgraded materials, anything that's special about a garment, you always want to accentuate that in the title. I find that that helps being descriptive about the color and the materials, as well as making sure you put if it's for a man, a woman, if it's youth, boys or girls. Just make sure that you're doing due diligence. And there's also a good order in which I like to list things. Probably do a video in the near future about how I like to list out my box, my description, and my title, and how that helps to have more flow and how it helps to stimulate the algorithm to put me on the top and give me more views. So these bad boys here sold for $26. I charge $7.50 shipping, and with anything that's Carhartt youth, I typically won't put a lot of the same words in the description box. A lot of times I'll put a lot of blue collar occupations if it's a men's or women's clothing item. Let's say it's a duck canvas jacket for a man or a woman. I'll probably put oil field construction. But when it comes to these youth items, obviously those kids aren't going to be going to work a job as an electrician. So what I like to put in the description box is things that are a little bit more rational. I'll put little helper, I'll put chore, I'll obviously put warm, dry, durable. I'll still put duck canvas because that's what Carhartt is known for. They're very durable exterior canvas that you often see in this brown colorway. And just know if it's a kid's item, again, it's going to have a little bit of a different targeted audience. I want to describe this item very well to that little kid's mom so that she's willing to pay that price and get something that's of good quality that's going to help her kiddo. So happy to see this piece go. Again, I paid $5 for it. Didn't have to pay much for it. Did have to sit on it for a little while and then listed it at an appropriate time and got a good sale on it. Now, one thing I've been doing as I've been scaling and growing my business as I work from home is I've been trying to compress more of my inventory into these clear inventory packages. I picked these up on Amazon for very cheap, and with a lot of my soft goods that are lighter, the lighter weight shirts, some of the smaller button-up short sleeve shirts, I'll often just wrap up. I'll put an inventory label with my SKU number on it. And this is really how I'm trying to move my business forward, because this is how you could compress more items into a small space. This is something I've learned through 2.5 years of trial and error. And so I'm no longer putting as many items on clothing racks. Clothing racks will work, but they don't seem to compress space as well, in my opinion. And if you watch a lot of these real successful YouTubers that are resellers that are selling in huge volumes, they're selling out of warehouses, and many times you'll just see rack upon rack with slotted boxes, and they'll have 10, 15, 20 of these, and these are just garments that have been wrapped up and compressed. And so this is a movement I'm making towards trying to store more items in a small and confined space. And I encourage anybody who's getting into reselling, or maybe somebody who's just putting things on clothing racks, to think about doing this just so you can get more inventory, so you can grow your store. That ultimately is going to help you to scale and make more money. But this item, back to the matter at hand, is a pair of Fox Racing men's mountain bike shorts. I'm going to go ahead and just keep this item in the package because I got 17 items to ship off today, and several of the items I've went ahead and taken out to share with you. But this item here is an item that I sourced for $5.99 at a local Goodwill probably just a month and a half ago, and I went ahead and listed it. Typically I don't list shorts so quickly, but I think it came at a time where I was kind of struggling to find much to list. My death pile was getting a little low, and because I know these sell well, I just decided to go ahead and list them a little bit prematurely. And so these bad boys here did sell for me for $28. I charged $6.95 shipping. With the title, I just made sure and put what the size was. These didn't have really any flaws to them, so I didn't have to worry about putting flaw or read in the title box. But what I did put in the description was mountain bike. I put the abbreviation MTB. I put downhill, racing, jumping, trail, and there's other words that you can associate to these type of shorts. But I love Fox Racing, whether it be mountain bike, BMX, or their motocross apparel. It sells for me, so just be on the lookout for it. Where I really love to source it from is actually garage sales, because I pay a lot less for it, but that's the case with a lot of items. So as I said though, back to inventory, think about compressing your items, think about getting on Amazon and investing in some of these, and you can also go the route of just putting it in a mailer. The downfall of just putting it in a mailer is it's not clear, so you just want to make sure that you have good inventory control, that you're making sure you're putting the right item in that mailer, especially because you can't see it, and then make sure you put a good inventory label on it describing the item, or at least having a good SKU number that correlates to the item. So nonetheless, moving on to the next piece here. So for those people that watch me a lot, they know that I sell a ton of Carhartt. I sell a lot of workwear, work utility, and that's just because I live in oil-filled country. I live in a rural farmland area, and those people work in oil field, work in construction, and working on those farms, they love Carhartt. And so this is a pair of vintage coveralls. These are 46 large and tall. These do have some stains on the bottom leg, and these are for a very tall drink of water. Got some color fade. They got some issues, but for the most part, they were pretty clean. Just know that a lot of this work utility wear is still sellable even if it has stains. You want to make sure that the zippers function. You don't want to have any big major holes, but it can have some distress. And I sell Carhartt of all different conditions all day long, from extremely tattered and beat up to extremely new and clean, and sometimes brand new. And so Carhartt is my business partner. I probably don't sell as much Carhartt as I do brands like Ariat and some of the other shoe brands that I sell in high volume, but Carhartt makes me a lot of money. It's something I enjoy selling. And so for a piece like this, I'm definitely going to tack on a lot of those blue collar occupational jobs. I'm going to put welder, construction, oil field. I'll put North Slope, offshore. I'll put pipeline, refinery, gas plant. Use your imagination. Think of the guy that's going to be wearing this outside in the cold. Think about what he does for work. And again, you can accentuate the item in the title by listing that it's quilted, which this has that quilt lining. It also has the corduroy collar, which sometimes I'll put on a jacket that might be vintage. And then always I like to put duck canvas in the title. And workwear just sells for me. So this is a piece that I picked up for $12 at my local flea market. I bundled it with another Carhartt jacket, which I've already sold, and I got a lesser price by a few bucks. I think they wanted 15 for these initially. And these sold for me. What made these a little more special is that they were large and tall, but I made one mistake. I listed these a lot later in the winter than I normally do. Typically in late summer and early fall is when I like to get all my best jackets, my coveralls, my good snowboarding jackets, and my work utility jackets, the heavy stuff listed, because I want it to have a spotlight for a longer period of time, because once the spring comes, jacket sales really fall off drastically for me, especially heavy jackets. And at that time of year, you really want to be listing windbreakers, lighter weight jackets, raincoats. And so that transition from heavy jackets to lightweight jackets, it just happens overnight. And typically for me, that's generally about late February, early March. It really starts dying down, but that's okay. That's when I like to start listing my springtime items. Again, to get that head start on the market and to have those items listed so that they have good visual appeal to that potential buyer who might be looking for one of those items kind of early. So I did sell these again on an offer for $70. Initially, I had them listed for 80 bucks. Had I got these listed several months earlier, I would have listed them for a little bit more money and just been patient. But as we move towards the end of the winter, I want to get rid of an item like this, and I'll be a little bit more liberal on accepting an offer. So $10 off was in that realm. the reason I want to get rid of items like this and big heavy coats is an item like this folded up takes up a lot of room, especially if you're storing these items at home. And I'm storing items out of 3 closets and 2 spare office spaces. And so for that reason, I just don't have the room to store a whole bunch of these. I learned in my first year of reselling, if you're not aggressive about selling the big stuff, it's gonna sit until the next following season, and nobody is buying coveralls in the middle of summer. Trust me when I say that, but be on the lookout for anything Carhartt. I love their duck canvas items, their jackets, their double knee pants, their double knee shorts. They just work, and not only are they functional for work and utility, there's just people out there that like it because it has that following for fashion nowadays. And so there's that side of it too. But I know with those people, I like to say the old saying, everybody likes to Carhartt until it's time to Carhartt. So I will move on and get off my soapbox. Next item up is a Fiesta ware platter. This bad boy I sourced at a garage sale this past summer for only $3. Most people think of Fiesta ware for their porcelain and ceramics, for their plates, their cups, their dishes, and I source a lot of that for very cheap and sell it for a decent profit. But because this was Fiesta ware, I decided to go ahead and scoop it up. It looks like a nice piece that somebody could make a bean dip and take to a party. That's just me, I'm just being silly, but regardless, because it was Fiesta, I knew it would sell, and it wasn't in terrible condition. It did have some wear to the enamel. I just made sure and denoted that. And in the description box, I don't put a whole lot of keywords, but I will put vintage. I'll try to put it around the time frame it was produced, maybe if that's in the 80s, 90s, Y2K, 2000. And I also like to put Fiesta collectors, Fiesta collection. And yeah, I just like to source Fiesta ware. It's nice premium stuff. I have a whole set of it I've kept for myself, for my own personal use, and that's one of the benefits of being a reseller is you can source nice stuff that maybe you wouldn't want to pay a premium for. So yeah, happy to see this guy go. Again, sold it for $25, $12.50 shipping, and only gave $3 for it. So glad to see it move. Now, next item up, bread and butter denim for me. Wrangler, I sell a lot of women's Wrangler jeans. These are from their boot cut line. Nothing special about these, just Western, kind of a darker wash. I did put that in the listing. With men's or women's Western jeans, I like to put cowgirl, I'll put rodeo, and for the women, I'll put barrel racing and pole bending, as those are rodeo events for women. I think that that helps me a lot. If the jeans are thick stitch or if they're flared, I'll put that. If they have any embellishment, any jewelry, I'll put that. But because these were pretty basic, there wasn't a whole lot I could contribute to making them seem flashier. So I just leaned on all of those basic keywords again, the rodeo, the cowgirl, I put farm, ranch, you could put a lot of different things again that correlate. You could put country western, western wear. But these here I sourced for $4 at a local thrift store not long ago. They did have some distress on the bottom, and I did accept a 10% offer for $17 plus $7.95 shipping. So happy to see these move. Wrangler, just a bread and butter line for me. What I really love to sell from Wrangler though is their 20X jeans for men, but I'll also sell them for kids. And I really love to source old Wrangler Pearl Snap Western brush popper shirts. Those are getting harder and harder to find, and they can take some time to sell, but be on the lookout for any Western Wrangler brush popper shirt that has a heavier material. It almost might seem like it's canvas or like a twill. That's probably a brush popper. And if it has large block stripes, or if it has a graphic or a bright flamboyant print, maybe an Aztec or Southwestern native print, those can sell for a lot of money, even sometimes beat up. And so that's one of my favorite clothing items to source and resell, but that's kind of a rarity. Just keep an eye out for it. They can be worth a lot of money. So I'm gonna jump into a couple hard goods. I sold several older hard goods over the weekend. I'm glad to see them go. They're items that I sourced and tried to resell in my early endeavor as a reseller. When I first started doing this, I was actually trying to sell mainly hard goods. I realized though, as the garage sale season in my area closed out, it was gonna be very hard to live off of sourcing and reselling hard goods because I only have a couple thrift stores where I live. And once the garage sale scene is over for me, the hard good sourcing is really difficult. But this is one of those items from my early days. And the strange part about this is I am actually a licensed physical therapist assistant in the state of New Mexico. I hope I never have to go back to doing that, but I have literally put on thousands of these on people's walkers. And so it's kind of ironic that I sourced these several years ago. I remember picking them up for 50 cents at a garage sale. They were cheap. I knew that there was probably somebody out there elderly that would want them, but there was a lot of them listed and they're just common. Somebody could go to Walmart or Walgreens and pick these up for not much money at all. So I did have to come down on the price. I didn't sell these for much at all, but it's humbling and it reminds me of my past working in the medical field, to which I miss at times, but I love being a reseller because at my core, in my heart, I'm a treasure hunter and I love the idea of being able to work for myself, and I've had success with that, and now I'm able to share what I've accomplished with you, and that actually makes me feel very good. It's almost the same feeling I got when I helped people with their health, and while it still doesn't quite compare to what I once did helping people with their health, there's a lot less stress involved. And so I want to be that cheerleader to anybody out there that if you're unhappy with your life, with your circumstances, especially with your job, maybe your relationship, maybe with your friendships, it's never too late to start over. And so I am proof of that. And this here is just a reminder of my past. So these here I picked up for 50 cents. I only paid I sold them for $6 and I charged $6.50 shipping. So glad to see them go. I've had them for a couple years. Next item up to share with you is another item that I just recently sourced, and I probably could have held on to this for another month or two and got a few more bucks. Shout out to my favorite thrift store. Yesterday and today's thrift store in Spencerville, New Mexico is where I love to shop in my local area. It's a small church-based thrift store and they're always giving me the goods. This is a Pyrex casserole dish of the square variety. It's got the spring daisy blossom, I forget, crazy daisy print on it. This is a very, very common print. And what's going on, Laura? I see you. I appreciate you shouting me out. This here is an item, though, that was in great condition. And while it is a common print, there's a lot of this print out there. This bad boy was in extremely good condition. When you're sourcing Pyrex or any type of vintage glass, you're gonna wanna look for chips, cracks, and blemishes. This did have a few small scuffs on it, and it had one small orange mark, and I just wasn't able to get it completely clean, but I made sure and denoted that. Again, as well as Fiesta ware with Pyrex, I just like to put Pyrex collection, Pyrex collectors. If you know the number, which is often located on the very back or bottom of the Pyrex dish, be sure and list that. And if you know the name of the print, make sure and put that on there. There's a lot of different rare prints out there from Pyrex, and most of what I sell Pyrex for is just bread and butter income. It's not for a whole lot, but once in a while I'll find something that I pay $5 for and I'll sell it for $90. My best Pyrex sell though was for $200, and I only gave $2 for that bowl. And so I love Pyrex because both my grandmothers used Pyrex. It's timeless, it's durable, it's highly collectible, it's easy to source for cheap, and that's why I sell it. So yeah, happy to see this piece go. Sold it for $22, charged $11 shipping, and I paid $5 for it from my favorite local thrift store. So thank you to all those good people down there. And now this is another item, glad to see it go. My very first summer sourcing, I picked up a ton of baseball gloves. That's a great thing to sell, but one thing I've done in recent years is I've moved away from sourcing the youth gloves. They'll sell, but they just don't sell for a whole lot of money, and this is one I've had since my beginning, so I'm humbled by selling it. I have dropped the price on this several times. A glove like this, brand new, really doesn't cost a whole lot of money, and that's probably why it was hard to sell. These are very common in Kmart's, Walmart's, and I shouldn't say Kmart because Kmart's really not even open, but in a lot of the department stores that are big, you can find low-end gloves. Where I'm sourcing gloves now is I'm sourcing the gloves that are the most common, and my good friend just reached out and said, go Seahawks. He's a Denver Broncos fan. So Seth, I see you out there. Thanks for shouting me out. But back to the glove. The glove brands that I love to source are Nakona. That's a very expensive brand. I like Nike, but the upper end Wilson gloves, the upper end Easton and Rawling gloves, as well as Spalding can sell for good money. I love Louisville Slugger, but what I really love is catcher's mitts. If you can find a catcher's mitt, it'll usually sell for a little bit more money, and I find that they sell a little bit faster. And more recently, in this past summer, I've sourced more baseball bats. I find I can find youth baseball bats and adult and youth women's softball bats for sometimes $3 to $5 and sometimes sell them for $30 to $80 online. The trick to selling baseball bats is you just need to know how to ship them, and that requires a longer length box, and so that's tricky for some people that are new, but baseball gloves are still legitimate. I would just suggest, if you're new, source the adult sizes, source the better brands, and make sure that you look over the condition. With this bad boy here, I let it go for nothing because I've had it forever. $5. I charged $4.99 shipping, but I only gave $1 for it at a yard sale 2 years ago. So what I typically do is I throw all my baseball gloves in a couple totes. They don't take up a lot of space, and a lot of the baseball gloves I do like to sell will often sell for about $30 to $50. And if you're scoring them or sourcing them at thrift stores, you are gonna have to pay more. So make sure that you're checking the sold and completed. That's gonna help you out and tell you if it's worth your investment and what you should pay for it. So next item up, Eddie Bauer 650 downfill jacket. I've had this for a year. This jacket sold and was returned only because the size just didn't fit. With Eddie Bauer, I kind of consider it a low-end Gort brand, kind of like LL Bean. I don't buy a lot of Eddie Bauer unless it's down-filled jackets, in all honesty, or vintage, but there are some pieces I might pick up if they have, say, a cool print on them, or if they're newer, more modern, and I can buy it for very cheap. But with a lot of Eddie Bauer, I just try to stick to the down-filled jackets and the vintage pieces. This is an Eddie Bauer 650 jacket, and so if you see any Gorp jacket, North Face does this, there's a lot of other high-end Gorp brands that do it, and it numbers the jacket, let's say like 500, 700, 800, that is the gram fill or the down fill weight, and that will tell you the heavier or the higher number, the more rated it is for colder conditions. By doing that, it will help you to know that you can probably get a little bit more for the jacket. The lower numbers are not rated for as cold a weather, and so they may not be worth as much. That's not always the case, but just know if you see a sleeve and it says Eddie Bauer 650, well, that's the down fill on it. With this jacket, I definitely put Gorp, I put Gorp Core, I made sure that it had goose down on the title, I put hiking, camping, trail. This bad boy just kind of had a earth tone color as many of the Eddie Bauer pieces do, so I made sure and put that in the listing, and happy to see it go. Only paid $5 for it. I have been sitting on it for over one winter into the next, and this piece here did sell for me for $28 plus $11 shipping. Happy to see it move out of my inventory, especially because I've had it a long time and it does have some wear. So next piece up is a pair of pair of Volcom snowboard pants. Just sourced these about a month and a half ago. I paid up on these and I got home with them. And despite doing this for 2.5 years and not being a rookie, I still buy things that have flaws. I got to talking with one of the ladies who runs the thrift store, didn't look these over in as good a detail, got home and realized that they had a big black mark, and that just happens sometimes. And so I ended up having to list these for a little bit less than I would have liked to. Had they been in a little bit cleaner condition, I probably would have listed them for closer to $60. That's okay though, they're still Volcom. Volcom jackets and Volcom snowboard pants sell really well for me. I do sell some Volcom denim. I can't say that the t-shirts sell as well or the button-up shirts sell very fast, so that's why I try to stick to the outerwear pieces, the heavier pieces, the pieces that you may have to pay more when you source, but they'll sell for more. And so with these bad boys, they're snowboarding. I did put in the listing butters, which is a term any snowboarder would recognize. I put jump, jib, head wall. I'll put ski vacation. I'll put winter sports. I'll put snowshoeing. I'll put snowball fight. I'll put sledding, tobogganing. Use your imagination. That's all I got to say about that. So these guys did sell for me for $43. I charged $11 shipping, and I did pay $15 for those, which is definitely paying up, but that is how the cookie crumbles this time of year. So another one of my favorite brands, a Gort brand. These are cool. The Law double knee pants. Now, a lot of outdoor Gorp companies create hiking pants with a double knee, and that double knee is just an extra piece of material that gives it further durability. And I get it, when you're out hiking, you might be kneeling down to make a fire. You need articles of clothing that are heavy and durable. And so there's a lot of companies out there that make hiking clothing, like Outdoor Research, Cool, there's tons of them that make double knee pants, but they have found a following with people who work in the labor sectors, with the work utility guys. And so I sell these a lot of times to guys who are doing construction jobs, and to that I'll put framer, I'll put electrician, landscaper, plumber. Those are the guys that are working on their hands and knees, and those are the guys that want these type of pants. So I sourced these, and as you can tell, they got a lot of stains. I sourced 2 pairs of these over the past summer. They wanted $3 a pair. I counter offered and said, I'll buy both pair for $2, and they went for that. I've already sold the other pair. They weren't in any better condition. They were stained up too. And the other pair sold for $23 just a few weeks ago, I think, or a month back. These did sell for $20. The lowest I would have went was $18. They're just beat up, but they're still in usable condition. They're durable. These did have some stretch in the waist, so I just made sure and mention that in the listing and put that they were bigger in the waist. You want to do that, and you want to make sure and put that there's flaws. And so I still put a lot of the GORP description words. I put hiking, trail, backpacking, backcountry, mountain climber, and I always like to put born in the mountains. Now this tag doesn't have it on there, but the logo for Cool is born in the mountains. And so with certain popular brands, I'll do that. Like with Nike, I'll put just do it. And so if there's any catchy logo with any brand, you can always put that in your description. You could even put it in the title if you have room. Again, these bad boys are beat up. I made some money off of them. I didn't pay much for them, and I did charge $10 shipping. So glad to see them go. And again, try to make sure that you put some description words that are work utility, but also for hiking when you come across GORP brands that are double knee. So next brand up, Lululemon. Don't find a whole lot of Lululemon, but when I did find these, this was at a thrift store up in Colorado, very near where I live. These were in the youth section, so they only had them priced at $7.49. But when I really looked them up and figured it out, they were actually men's commission pants. So they are more of a slim fit. And Lululemon is so top secret with their logo. They're very unassuming, but you want to be on the lookout. I think it's like an Omega sign. And these are brown, and the lighting at my house is not good. But just be on the lookout for that. Oftentimes it's very hard to find the size tag. So what you might want to do is actually look inside of the pocket or reverse the garment. Often there's a little dot, and that dot will have the size. I was actually unable to locate the size of these anywhere, and I turned these bad boys inside out 5 times in a row. But regardless, I was still able to just give them some hand measures, and they did have a few light faded spots, maybe a detergent stain, but I picked them up for $7.49, and because they were Lululemon, and I still have pretty good success selling Lululemon, I figured it was worth the grab, especially because this time of year it is hard to source good brands like this. These did sell for $20 plus $8.95. I think I had them listed at $22 and some change because of the flaws, and don't got a whole lot of words to tell you about for Lululemon, and that's just because I don't source a lot of Lululemon. It's kind of rare, and I think a lot of people use Lululemon's buyback program, and that's probably why I don't find it as much in the last year. People are allowed now to return certain Lululemon items, and Lululemon will replace it. There's other brands like Filson doing that, and when companies do that, I think it does definitely affect the resale value. A lot of people don't donate those type of items or sell them if they know about it, because they know they can go and replace it. And it's a good deal for somebody that's paid full price for something. Another Carhartt piece. Ripstop pants. Just picked these up at my local thrift store a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Picked them up for $7.49 at my local thrift, which is very rare. I think they had mispriced them or not realized they were Carhartt, because most Carhartt pieces at my local thrift are charged to the moon or charged the maximum. But I love Ripstop. To me, Ripstop is definitely an upgraded material. If you're unfamiliar with Ripstop, it is that material that has all those little bonded squares. The idea is if there is a hole puncture, it will not spread. And so with these, you can list them. You can target that blue collar, work utility, industrial scene to try to sell them. I do that. I like to put all of those keywords that I just told you about with some of the other Carhartt pieces, but I also like to target those guys who are into prepping, the guys that are into tactical shooting, because those guys really like to wear ripstop. And if they're black, the security guards and the law enforcement guys love ripstop pants. So you can put security guard in your description box for keywording. You could put police officer, law enforcement. You could put doomsday prepper. You could put competitive shooter, competitive shooting. And those are the guys that love ripstop. Again, just because of the nature of its durability. And I like ripstop because it's still lightweight. It's not as heavy as denim, but it's just tougher. So yeah, find you a brand that you really love to sell. Go crazy, go to town with it. For me, it's Carhartt. It sells, and I find a lot of it. So yeah. So winding it down, my friends, I only got a few more pieces to share with you, and we'll be done with this. Now, here we go again, got another item. This is just an LL Bean quarter zip. I sourced 3 or 4 of these quarter zips over the past summer. They were all in different colors. This is the very last one to sell. The other ones were not as bright of colors, and that's probably why they sold quicker. This is very bright for LL Bean. A lot of LL Bean items are very earth tone, especially in their menswear line, and it makes sense. It's an outdoor clothing company, but this bad boy here had some lighter colors. It's a little bit more spring or summer, and I only paid $3 for it. It did sell on an offer for $17 plus $7.95 shipping. Again, just a men's quarter zip. And sorry, I'm not gonna unwrap it because I got 17 items I gotta get packaged up. But again, if you can move towards storing your item in mailers or these clear storage bags, you'll be able to compress and have a bigger inventory, a much bigger death pile, and I suggest it. And anytime you can pick up anything in a lot, you can always get a better price. I believe that the person selling those LL Bean quarter zips wanted $5 a piece. And when I told her I'd buy them all for $3, she went for it. And if you're outsourcing, don't be afraid to look an item over and point out the flaws. If it's a Carhartt jacket and they want $20 for it at a garage sale and it's got a bunch of holes, the zipper don't work, and it's got a lot of stains, use that as leverage to get a better deal. I can almost guarantee that it'll help you. And so, yeah, that's all I got for you on that. But garage sales and yard sales are where I like to source because I can get stuff for very cheap. Now, winding it down, Brooks Levitate running shoes. Picked these up just for a couple dollars. Had these for over a year now. Sold these on an offer for $22. Did free shipping. There's not going to be a whole lot of profit because it's going to cost me somewhere between $7 to $9 to ship them. But I like to do free shipping with a lot of my cheaper, older or more beat up running shoes. If they're really good running shoes, maybe some Ons, some Topos, or some Hokas in really great condition, I will often still charge shipping. But for the most part, I would say probably 70 to 80% of the shoes I sell, I do free shipping, and that's because the condition isn't good. And it's just a leverage point to get that sale. Now, I like Brooks, but I backed off buying the older models of Brooks because I've just found they don't sell as quickly as maybe older models of Hokas, and they don't sell for as much. Now, these are an older style, but they're in better condition. They just didn't sell for a whole lot. But with premium running shoes, I always like to put in the title definitely the actual color from the manufacturer. That often will help you get a better, quicker sale. People like those catchier names on the color. They like to buy a Patagonia hoodie that is made from, or is titled Brown Mocha. But long story short, with running shoes, back to that, the running shoes I like to put arch support, foot comfort, foot pain, and I typically only do that with the really great brands like Hoka, like Brooks, Topo, the ones that people are going to pay a lot of money for, because there is a lot of podiatrists or foot doctors out there that actually recommend those brands to help people with foot pain. And I have a whole bunch of different premium running shoes, and man, they're comfortable. So quit beating yourself up with cheap tennis shoes. I still like to wear some Chuck Taylors, some Vans, but at the end of the day, as you get older, your joints will thank you for more comfortable running shoes. You can also put marathon, triathlon, gym, training, cardio. There's a million and one words. Just make sure it correlates and has some connection to the item you're selling. So happy to see those go, especially because, again, I've had them for a while. Last couple items to share with you. Almost done. I got some cast iron trivets. These little cast iron trivets I thought were from a very popular brand. They were not, and so I listed these, I don't know, maybe a year ago or less than a year ago, and I had a collector reach out to me, and he said, those are not that brand. I did some research, and he was actually correct. And so just know that if you're selling something collectible and you don't have a vast knowledge of it, be willing to take the advice of somebody who seems to know or do some homework. I was grateful for that gentleman doing that, and I've had that happen just a couple other times with items I've listed and I've been incorrect on. And sometimes it's just hard to tell what an item is. Some of these items are, again, obscure. Maybe they were produced a long time ago, but you don't want to sell something under the pretense that it is of a different brand, and it's not. That's a great way to get bad feedback and get an angry customer. And so I relisted these after the gentleman gave me that insight. I dropped the price on them. I've been holding them for a while. Now I picked these up for only a few bucks, and they did sell for $8.50. I did charge $7 shipping. While these are small, they are still heavy because they're cast iron. This is probably something I wouldn't source again, but when I sourced them, I was under the impression that I thought I could probably sell them for around $20, and that was not the case. So we all learn, and that's the best part about life, is that we get to fail, and then we get to ask ourselves what we learned from those failures, and that's really the silver lining of life. So last item up, not gonna share it with you. This is another direction I'm still going with how I package my items, again, to store more items in a small and confined space, which is my house. This is just a Jordan hoodie. It's heather gray, very plain. It has the Jumpman logo, nothing special about it. It also has a couple stains, but I only gave it $50 for it at a moving sale. I bought a huge armful of clothing, actually a trash bag full, and I got everything for super cheap that way. I almost passed on this hoodie, but I didn't because Jordan is very popular, and I've had some success selling some flawed Jordan pieces in the past, but I went ahead and left it in the mailer because with my heavier hoodies, with maybe bigger shackets, I've moved towards doing this again, kind of like with the clear mailers, and that's just allowing me to have more space to store the items in a smaller area. If you're working from home, you don't want to get top heavy. If you're buying items that don't have a fast sell-through rate, that's going to happen. And so that's the importance of buying good items with a high sell-through rate, and make sure that if it's an item that has a slow, lower sell-through rate, if you're purchasing it, don't pay much money for it because it's going to take a long time to sell. And so it's some real common sense knowledge when you really get down to brass tacks with reselling. But the reason I didn't break this out is because it's just a pretty basic Jordan shirt. And I wanted to share with you that there's a lot of resellers you might see out there that are big, that have warehouses. And this is actually how they're storing. They've moved away from the clear storage mailers and they've just went right to this. And the benefit of this versus this is this just needs the shipping label and it's ready to go. The downfall with this is it's not clear and I cannot objectively say, yes, this is definitely the item. So make sure you're doing good quality work when you're working your inventory over, when you're putting anything in a mailer. Again, if you're unsure, if you have some question, tear it open and just make sure it is what it is. And that's why I use inventory labels. One thing I need to do is get to where I'm using my Rollo printer just to print out the SKU number for me rather than handwriting it. That's something I have as a goal for myself in the future, but I still think it's worth it if you're wanting to go this route to go to the clear storage mailers. The benefit of this is that you can identify the item by looking at your inventory label, but also seeing the item itself. The downfall of this is that I still have to put this in a shipping mailer later. And so more and more I'm starting to just do this. And that's the reason that I'm saving space and able to grow my store. So that is it, my friends. Small thing I'd like to share with you, as things have been slower this past few weeks as we've worked into Q1 and moved away from the good busy season where we make a lot of our income, is it has given me a lot of free time. And while sales have definitely slowed down and I'm not making as much money, that extra time I have now is giving me the opportunity to clean up some of my storage spaces throughout my house. As a sole proprietor, as a one-man show, it is very easy to get a little off track, and I'm a very regimented and orderly person, but when you're one person doing it all, I want to encourage you to give yourself some grace. And so right now, I'm giving myself a little bit of grace and accepting it's just the slow season. I've been here before. This is not my first January, and I'm taking that extra time to still invest in my business by getting my storage rooms more organized. And again, I'm moving away from items on clothing racks and putting them into the storage mailers as well as the inventory storage bags. And that again is to just try to help make my business more efficient down the road. Putting things into those mailers upfront, does require a little bit more processing time, but you'll thank yourself when it's time to put those shipping labels on, because then you won't have to go through folding everything and putting it away. And so the more I do this full-time reselling gig, the more I realize that if I process things and do a good job up front with my business, the less headache I have on the back end of the business. And if you can streamline your business, and if you can think about ways to make it more and more efficient, if you can learn from your mistakes, if you can watch other resellers like me, other ones that are bigger, that have had longer term success, you'll find a way. And I wouldn't follow my advice per se exactly. I would take the advice of a whole lot of different resellers and make your own way. And that's how I did it. And I suggest that because all of our markets are different. How we're going to source clothing, our budgets, where we store our items, that's all different from one person to the next. So just take all the advice you can, take all your good life experiences from past jobs, from past interactions with people, and use it. That's how I found my success. That's why I'm here, and that's why I've not had to go back to a real job. So I hope that all that helps you. Thanks for tuning in. For all the people that made comments and engaged on this live stream, thank you. I'm grateful and I'm humbled to be here, and I hope that I'm adding some value and hopefully helping you. I enjoy doing this. It's part of that give back. And again, remember, when you give, you receive. So we'll do it again next time. I'm out.